So my goal was to get done at least on time, if not early. And it's already 1:45, so we'll see. But if you remember right, last time the pastor allowed me to give a message, I went way over. So I was hoping to give you back some of your time tonight. But we'll see, and you can see I'm already rambling, so it's probably not going to happen. And I definitely don't want to say it's going to happen, because then I'll be guilty of falling prey to the first tongue we're going to talk about tonight. And that is our topic tonight, and it's a very simple message, I think. I call it the proverbial tongue. So we're going to be looking at verses in Proverbs, and I'll be hopping here and there, so you really don't have to follow. But we're going to start in the book of James, just to introduce this. James chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. It says, "My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they may be so great that are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth." So we know that our tongue can get us into a lot of trouble. And yet, the tongue can be used to do a lot of good. And that's what we're going to look at tonight in the book of Proverbs. Albert Herbert said this. He said, "If nobody ever said anything unless he knew what he was talking about, a ghastly hush would descend upon the earth." And I think we've all fallen prey to that ourselves. We thought we knew what we were talking about, and we voiced our opinion, what we thought we knew, and we find out later that's not the case. So we're going to go through several types of tongues the book of Proverbs address, and we're going to contrast them. So the first tongue we're going to look at is the lying tongue. Probably one that we have one of the most difficulties with. But Proverbs 12:22, first part of the verse says, "Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord." It's distasteful. He hates it. Proverbs 6:16 and 17 says, "These 6 things that the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him, a proud look, a lying tongue." And yet, we're so prone to quickly not tell the truth. And Proverbs address this many verses. It says, "A lying tongue is but for a moment." Because when you lie, normally you get found out. So what you say doesn't last. 13:5, "A righteous man hateth lying." So if we have a right relationship with God, we're going to be less prone to lie, because God hates it, as we just said. Proverbs 10:18, "He that hideth hatred with his lying lips is a fool." So this is one that he doesn't like the person maybe he's addressing or she is addressing, and yet they portray themselves differently to that person. It's called hypocrisy. And the Bible says that person is a fool, with hideth hatred, but yet they look like they like and are speaking kindly. So why do we lie? If we know that God hates it, why? Well, fear sometimes, right? Maybe we were caught doing something, good or bad, that we don't want it to be known. And we're fearful of someone finding out. So we tell a little lie. But then if we're pressed on the matter, we have to make another decision. Am I going to confess or not? And then often, well, we already went this far. We're going to just keep going, and the lie just keeps building and building. And then we get caught in our own words and into a trap. Maybe it's because we want something. So we lie here. We can get this from maybe a job or something somebody else has. So sometimes lies the covetousness. We're not satisfied with what we have from God. We want more, and so we lie to obtain it. Or it's just pride, right? Embarrassed. We're embarrassed for the truth to be revealed. And we won't humble ourselves, and we lie. So instead of that tongue, what Proverbs says is that we should have a truthful tongue. A truthful tongue. Proverbs 12:22 says, "But they that deal truly are his delight." So we already know that if we lie, it's an abomination. We disgust him. But yet if we tell the truth, even though it may cost us something immediately, that's a delight to God, and we're pleasing to him. 12:19a says, "The lip of truth shall be established forever." Truth stands test of time, right? Lies normally are uncovered, just like God's word will always stand because it is truth. And we speak truth. It may be difficult, but it will stand. 12:17, "He that speaketh truth showeth forth righteousness." Again, because that's of God, and God is truth. Now we see this illustrated, what lying can do, very well with Saul. If you remember right, in 15 of 1 Samuel, he's supposed to deal with the Amalekites. He's supposed to abolish them. Everything they have, every person, for what they did to the Jews when they were coming out of Egypt into the Promised Land. They dealt very badly with them, killed, attacked them. And God said right then that they would be judged. And so Saul was supposed to carry that out. And we'll just read a couple of the verses that highlight what we're talking about here. Verse 13, it says, "And Samuel came to Saul," because Saul was supposed to kill everything, not take any of the spoils, but he did. And it says in 15, "And Saul said," or in 13, "And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed be thou of the Lord, I have performed the commandment of the Lord." All right, right there he tells a lie to start out with, because God said, don't save anything. Then Samuel confronts him. Then he says in 15, Saul said, "They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep, the oxen, to sacrifice to the Lord thy God, and the rest we've utterly destroyed." All right, so Saul had a better plan. We'll keep the very best, and we'll give it back to God. Of course, that's not what God said to do. Verse 20, "And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites." So now he confesses more. There was people he had not killed. The king was there. Then 21, "But the people took of the spoil, sheep, oxen, chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God in Gilgal." So now he tries to push the blame off to the people. It wasn't his fault. So we see through this story that Saul had several opportunities to tell the truth, and yet he would not. And it costs him dearly. We know God judges him, says the throne will be removed from you. We look at that and say, well, she was really dumb there. But you know, we do the exact same thing. Just because we're not willing to humble ourselves, tell the truth, swallow the harsh pill at that point, to then be able to move on. So we want to have a truthful tongue and not a lying tongue. That should be our character. All right, the second tongue we see is that we don't want the flattering tongue. Proverbs speaks against this. This is when we're saying nice things, but yet we really mean something else. Proverbs 2:16, it's repeated in 7:5. "To deliver thee from the strange woman, even from the stranger which flattereth with her words." So she's not seeking the good of the one she's talking to. She's seeking her own benefit. Proverbs 26:28, "And a flattering mouth worketh ruin." Again, because it's not seeking the good of the other person. And it'll bring trouble to that person if they give in to the flatterer. Proverbs 20:19, "Meddle not with him that flattereth with his lips." Same reason. They're not seeking your interest, they're seeking their own. A man that flattereth with his neighbor spreadeth a net for his feet. So we may have a neighbor that moves in and installs a nice in-ground swimming pool, and all of a sudden that neighbor's the best, and we compliment him, we praise him all the time. Is it because specifically for the neighbor and that person's? No, it's for what we're hoping to get out of it, an invitation to swim in their pool. That would be what we can fall prey to, and it's very easily do. Or someone that's wealthy, we can be more friendly to and talk nicer to than someone that has no money. And that's wrong. But yet we easily can fall to that. So instead of a flattering tongue, we need to have a friendly tongue. A friendly tongue. One that's seeking the better interests of the other person and not our own. Proverbs 28:23. He that rebuketh a man afterward shall find more favor than he that flattereth with the tongue. So he that rebuketh, he sees a friend, a neighbor, someone doing wrong, and he makes the effort to address what's wrong, to hopefully doing it well, not angry, but trying to help the other person. And at first, this Bible says that other person may be angry, but in the end, often that person will realize, that person was seeking my good. And you become someone they trust instead of the flatterer is just the opposite. Proverbs 24:28. Be not a witness against thy neighbor without cause, and deceive not with thy lips. All right, so we don't want to speak against others unless it's for a very good reason. Again, that's not helping. It's not a friend doesn't do that. But of course, there are times where that has to be addressed. All right, so friendly tongue, not a flattering tongue. All right, the third tongue. We don't want a whispering tongue. Now, a whispering tongue calls it a talebearer, or we would often call it a gossip. So we don't want to be that person. Proverbs 11:13 says, a talebearer revealeth secrets. I mean, there's some people, if they know something, some people I think might explode if they don't tell somebody. They just can't keep it in. They gotta let it out to someone. So a talebearer, someone that just can't keep a secret, a gossip, someone that whispers, is one that's going to reveal secrets. Proverbs 18:8 and 26:22. Again, this one's repeated twice. Says the words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the uttermost parts of the belly. They hurt. I mean, you tell somebody something in secret, and then you hear it spread out abroad, that hurts. You tell it to someone you thought you could trust. So we don't want to be that type of person that can't keep secrets, and we don't want to gossip because that doesn't benefit the other person. Again, we're not exhibiting a friendly tongue for sure. We're whispering tongue is what we don't want to have because it separateth friends in the end, right? That's what Proverbs 16:28 says. A whisperer separated the chief friends because they can't trust. If you can't trust a friend, you're going to start separating yourself. So instead of a whispering tongue, we need to try to engage a silent tongue or a retaining tongue, not always telling what we know. So Proverbs 11:13 says, but he that is of a faithful spirit concealeth the matter. So a real friend, you tell someone, going to stay silent, not going to voice it out. Voice it abroad. So I'm sure we've all gossiped before, so we've been on both sides, I'm sure. Sometimes we fall prey, and we've been the one that has been hurt by someone who's spreading things. So we don't want to be that person. We want to be silent and retain what we know. I'm trying to hurry, believe me. I got a goal, striving forward. So I'm skipping some things. I learned that from the pastor. He'll say, I had all these notes, and we're just skipping through them. So I'm learning. Even at my age, I'm still learning. All right, tongue 4. We don't want to have a harsh tongue. Proverbs 15:1, second part of the verse says, but grievous words stir up anger. So when we use harsh, bitter words, angry words, that's going to reciprocate anger back often. So grievous words that are painful, hurtful, cause sorrow, are going to stir up anger. Proverbs 16:27, an ungodly man diggeth up evil, and in his lips there is a burning fire. So some people are just fierce with their words, and they mean to be, and they set things on fire by their words. And they cause explosive situations with what they say. And often that's what their goal is. So instead of that, we want to have a gentle tongue or a calming tongue instead of the harsh or the one that entices anger. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turneth away wrath. So we want to be someone who, instead of kindling problems and fires, we're dousing them. Proverbs 25:15b says, a soft tongue breaketh the bone. So again, a soft answer can remove that callousness, the hardness that's in a person, and break it down. And again, instead of stirring up the anger, you're causing a peace to come into the situation. Now we see an example of that with Abigail and David. And that's in 1 Samuel 25. Read a couple of these verses. Just a couple. All right, so David had helped Nabal, Abigail's husband, protecting his flocks, his men. David's kind of on the run from Saul, but he's been around Nabal's land. He's helped him out. And now David has a need, and he sends men to Nabal, or Nabal. I'm sure my wife's going to get on to me about my pronunciation. If not already, now she's probably on it. She never misses one mispronunciation, I can tell you. I think she's writing them down as I speak. All right, so his men come to Nabal, ask him to help David. This was his response, Nabal's. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away from every man from his master. So he knew what the situation between David and Saul was. Saul's seeking him. David's kind of on the run. And so that's his response. David doesn't take it very well. Verse 13, and David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. So Nabal used the harsh tongue, which generated anger in David. But now we're going to see Abigail use the gentle or the calming tongue to eliminate a dire situation from taking place. In 21, it says, now David had said, surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertaineth unto him, and he hath requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. So he's going to kill all of them for this transgression. And when Abigail saw David, she hasted, lighted off the ass, and fell before David on her face, and bowed herself to the ground. All right, so she humbles herself, and she basically pleads to David not to do this thing. And in the end, because of Abigail's use of her tongue, calming use of words, we get down to verse 32. And David said to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. Blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou that hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood and from avenging myself with mine own hand." Because God wasn't in it. David was angry. He was going to take matters in his own hands. And instead of the harsh tongue Nabal had, Abigail's wife used the gentle or calming tongue. So that's the kind of tongue we need to do to rectify situations that could go badly. Be that type of tongue user. All right, the fifth tongue, a deadly tongue. It says Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." All right, so there's two options here, death and life. And the same tongue can produce both. So a deadly tongue, a tongue of hate, or one seeking destruction, is what we're talking about. Proverbs 12:18, there is that speaketh like the piercing of a sword. All right, so they just poke it in, trying to cause as much pain to someone as possible, cutting them apart with their words. Proverbs 5:9, their tongue is an open sepulcher. All right, so again, using it very badly, causing, in a sense, death to the person they're talking to. Thy tongue deceiveth mischiefs like a sharp razor, working deceitfully. That's Psalm 52:2. That one's not in Proverbs. But devises mischiefs, using, again, like a sharp razor, cutting apart. Psalm 64:3, one more out of Psalms. Who whet their tongues like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. So some have honed their tongue in such a way that they're experts in cutting people apart with their words. And we don't want to be that person. We want to be an expert on the other side, right? Bringing edification, building someone up. So we've cultivated our tongue for encouragement and building up instead of tearing down. And that should be our goal. So we should strive, instead of a deadly tongue, for a healing tongue. One that brings life to someone. So Proverbs 12:18b says, "But the tongue of the wise is health." So if we're wise, we use our tongue rightly, then we can help others. Proverbs 15:4, "A wholesome tongue is a tree of life." So again, we want to encourage people, bring life to people, not the opposite. And you can start getting a little nervous. I'm only halfway through my notes. I'm getting a little nervous. All right, Proverbs 16:24, "Pleasant words are as a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones." So this maybe happens to you sometimes. It's happened to me when I'm driving sometimes. I'm driving along, someone pulls out in front of me. And you look in your rearview mirror, there's no one behind you at all. And then they drive well below the speed limit. Now, to me, I don't deal with that well. And I can quickly fall prey to this deadly tongue, cutting them apart, wishing them all kinds of ills. And it's wrong. So it's something, I have to get the victory over. But that's how we can use a deadly tongue. Just cut people apart instead of just saying, "Oh, God, I turn this over to you." Maybe they have a reason. Maybe they didn't see. Their thoughts are on some big problem they have, whatever. All right, tongue 6. We have 7 tongues, so we're getting near the end. So we don't want to use our tongue in an evil way, an evil tongue, or perverse, in a perverse manner. So it says, "Put away from thee," Proverbs 4:24, "a forward mouth." So that's a distorted or a crooked mouth, one that's speaking crookedness, distorted words. "And perverse lips put from thee." So devious, crooked words put far from thee. Proverbs 10:31, "But the froward tongue shall be cut out." So that means it shall come to an end. Proverbs 17:20, "And he that hath a perverse tongue falleth into mischief." So because when you speak devious things, crooked things, eventually you're going to fall prey to what you're talking about, or someone's going to find out you've been speaking those type of things and deal with it. So, Proverbs 19:1, better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. So better, again, to just be content, use your words rightly, keep your integrity, instead of wanting more and using your words perversely, crookedly, to get what you don't have, thinking you deserve it. So instead of an evil tongue, we should have a good tongue. The mouth of the just bringeth forth wisdom. It's Proverbs 10:31. Proverbs 12:25. Heaviness is in the heart of man maketh it stoop, but a good word maketh it glad. So again, crookedness, perversion, using the word tongue like that can bring heaviness, people down, but yet if we use our words well and good, it brings cheer, makes people happy. Proverbs 15:23, a man hath joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season, how good is it? When we use our words well and good, and we encourage someone, and they come out of the discouragement they're in, or the situation in it, helps them out of it, who does that bring joy to? It brings joy to them, right? But it brings joy to us when we see that we were able to help someone like that. So we can bring joy to other people and bring inner joy to ourselves by you having a good tongue instead of a evil tongue. All right, I'm going to skip that example and go to the last tongue here. Tongue 7. We don't want a loose tongue. A loose tongue. In the Proverbs 10:19 says, in the multitude of words there wanteth not sin. You know, the more and more we say, the more and more chance we have of falling into using the wrong words. So when you speak, talk, it's eventually going to cause you problems, and you're going to run astray where you should be. So the wanteth not sin when you use a lot of words. Proverbs 13:3, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. Again, one that just speaks, always saying what they think they know, giving their opinion on everything. Proverbs 29:20, seest thou a man that is hasty in his words? There is more hope of a fool than of him. All right, so we need to speak rashly. We need to think a little bit. Again, we think. I know sometimes we hear something happens, and we speak immediately because we think we know something. And I know I've done it, and often I regret not thinking before speaking, because what's true when we speak? We can apologize, but we can't take the words out of that other person's minds. So think before you talk, and you don't have to say everything you think you know. Proverbs 29:11 says, a fool uttereth all his mind. So one that just has to say everything they know is not using wisdom. So instead of a loose tongue that talks all the time, a tight tongue. One that doesn't speak all the time. Proverbs 10:19, but he that refraineth his lips is wise. So one that doesn't speak, or at least doesn't speak rashly and gives some time for thought before they say something, is wise. Proverbs 13:3, he that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life. Again, we started with James, bridling, how it can bring destruction. So he that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, keeps harm from coming to himself often. He that hath knowledge spareth his words. Proverbs 17:27. So some people think the more they say, the more people think they're smart and they know a lot. But yet this verse says, he that hath knowledge spareth his words. Doesn't say so much. Proverbs 17:28. Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise. So let me read one quote. I won't read the others because I'm pretty much out of time. But I like this one. Young lawyer, this is from Walter Knight. He said this: a young lawyer, Abraham Lincoln, once said of another lawyer who talked excessively but never had anything worth saying, quote, "That man can pack the most words into the least ideas of any man I know." So we don't want to be guilty and be that person. All right, so in conclusion, yes, I'm going to go over just a couple minutes. Forgive me, don't throw anything, but I have to have a conclusion. All right, so in summary, we don't want to have the tongues we just talked about. So Proverbs 12:2 says, "But the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness." So we don't want that. Proverbs 17:7, "Excellent speech becometh not a fool." So if we don't have good speech, we're as a fool. "A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul." But we want the other tongues we talked about. "The tongue of the wise useth knowledge upright." Proverbs 15:2. Proverbs 20:15, "There is gold and a multitude of rubies, but the lips of knowledge are a precious jewel." So if we cultivate a wise tongue instead of a foolish tongue, then we will, Proverbs 8:8, all the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing forward or perverse in them. So as we cultivate that wise tongue, which comes from drawing closer to God, then we're going to have righteousness, and we're not going to have those other tongues. Proverbs 35:28, "And my tongue shall speak of the righteousness and thy praise all the day long." So instead of speaking foolishness, bad things, we're going to be drawing closer to God, be wiser, and we're going to be praising God instead. "O God, thou God of my salvation, and my tongue shall sing aloud of thy righteousness." So we should be praising God. "My tongue shall speak of the word, for all thy commandments are righteousness." All right, I'm going to skip the conclusion because I'm out of time. All right, he said I can go on. So, it's short. And if you're mad at me, then, yeah, don't take it out on him. It's my fault. It's not his. He's being a friend. He's using his tongue. He's already incorporating this, a friendly tongue. All right, how can we consistently have the but this tongues we talked about, the good tongues? Luke 6:45 says, "A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. And an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh." All right, so we find out that we can have a good tongue. How? Where does it come from? Where? The heart, right? Out of the heart, abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So we need to have the right heart to have the right tongue. So that gets us back to James, where we started at in our introduction. James 3:8, a couple verses later from where we read, says, "But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison." So here we want these good tongues we talked about. We don't want the bad tongues, the foolish tongues. We want the wise tongues. So how do we get them? It's by God's grace, right? It's by God. Drawing close to God, He allows us to have the right heart, and through the right heart, we can have these tongues. So we can't do it on our own. So that's what we have to remember. It's something we gain from God and not in and of ourselves. So Proverbs 16:1 says, "The preparations of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord." So that's where it's going to come from. That's how we can succeed in our speech. All right, I will close in prayer. God, we just pray that we would be vessels fit for your use, that we will use our tongues in a God-honoring, glorifying manner that not only brings honor to you, but encourages other people, builds them up, edifies instead of tearing down, and splitting relationships, draws relationships together, just empowers with this. Help us to desire that and draw closer to you. Be with us as we leave the night. Be with the camp as it continues on this week, that we just speak to the kids and give them safety. In Jesus'